As we continue to work on our strategies for becoming a better reader, I want to revisit some of the things that we've talked about either in this class or in English classes previously. These elements listed on this page are things that strategic readers do. Reading can be practiced and we can all get better at it, and these are some of the things that we should focus on. First of all, rereading. The next thing on the list is marking text and recording notes. This is like the annotation strategies that we've worked on in the past. So making notes, interacting with your reading, doing more than just getting to the end of the page, actually stopping, thinking about, summarizing passages, underlining important things, are all practices that strategic readers do. We can all become strategic readers if we do this. The thing that we're going to focus on next is using context and word parts to infer meaning. Sorry about that. So we're going to really look at what we do when we come across words that we don't know, and when those words prevent us from understanding the big picture, we need to learn to use the context and the hints that are there in the writing to help us understand. So, context is the word surrounding an unfamiliar word that provides clues to the word's meaning. So in the articles that we read, in reading that we come across in our textbooks, there are frequently clues that the author gives you to help you understand words that might be unfamiliar to you. Take a look at the sentence that's at the top of the screen. Many of us have ambivalent feelings about our politicians, admiring but also distrusting them. What I want you to do is take a minute and reread the sentence. Look for clues that will help you to determine what ambivalent means. And then I want you to choose from these three words at the bottom of the page, which one of these means the same thing as ambivalent. So at this point I would ask a student for their ideas and ask them why they chose the answer that they did, and hopefully they would point out that when in the sentence it talks about the feelings of admiration but also distrust, and how those are like kind of opposites or two different ways of feeling, and so then the best choice would be mixed. I have a few more examples, and again I would do the same sort of thing where I would have them read the sentence and come up with ideas based on clues in the context of the sentence to help figure out what the italicized word means. And here's another one. So I would take just a little bit of time talking about how we need to look for the clues within the sentence, the context clues, to help us understand. There are 4 types of context clues that I want students to become familiar with. It's not so much that they can tell you a definition of what these mean, but so that they're more aware of things to look for in their reading to help them comprehend. So the 4 types of context clues we're going to talk about are examples, synonyms, antonyms, and then just the general sense of the sentence or the sentences surrounding it. Here is an example of a sentence where there is an example given within the sentence to help you figure out the word. You told me to use my initiative if I needed money, so I sold your car. Basically, we want to figure out what the word initiative means, and we have an example of what initiative means. So she had a problem, she needed money, so she came up with a solution. She figured out a plan, she took charge to change the situation. She sold the car. So this example gives you a clue as to what initiative might mean. Synonym is a word that means the same or almost the same as the unknown word. In this cartoon example, it says, my doctor said smoking could terminate my life, but I told him everyone's life has to end sometime. Sometimes we get stuck on words like terminate. What does that actually mean? But when we look at the sentence, everyone's life has to end sometime, that's a synonym. That means the same thing. Termination means ending. So that gives us a clue as to what the word means. Antonyms are words that mean the opposite of another word. It's a special hearing aid. It lowers criticism and amplifies compliments. So amplifies is a word that sometimes people struggle with. And in this example, it shows two different things that the hearing aid can do. It can lower criticism and amplify compliments. So the opposite of amplifies is to lower. And so that gives you a little bit of a clue that the word amplify means to increase, raise up, make louder. And then finally we have, sometimes we just have to look at the general sense of the sentence or the sentences around it to get an idea. I'd like a prescription that will alleviate my aches and pains and also make me younger and thinner. So alleviate in this sentence, they like a prescription. So we get a prescription when we're sick or have an illness that will alleviate my aches and pains and also make me younger and thinner. If I want to alleviate aches and pains and I need a prescription, usually a prescription stops or reduces or ends aches and pains. So I would say that alleviate would mean to stop, something along those lines. So these are all examples, 4 different ways of looking at context clues to help us figure out what words mean in a sentence. The next thing that I want to do is do some shared work so that we can practice this. Let's start with number 6 and let's work on this together. But the instructions say, using context clues for help, write the definition for each italicized word. Then write the letter of the definition in the space provided. Choose from the definitions in the box below. Each definition will be used once. So for each of these answers, we're going to choose one of the choices in this green box above here to give us another meaning of the word that's italicized. Let's do number 6 together as a whole group. I would not just be glad if I won the lottery. I'd be ecstatic. So using our context clues, what do you think ecstatic means? I would not just be glad. So I would be more than just glad. So which of these words up here would suggest that I would be more than glad? And I think the best answer here would be D, overjoyed. So ecstatic means, and I'd write in there, overjoyed. What I would do next is invite the students to do 7 and 8 with the partner next to them. So I would pair them up and have them do 7 and 8. Again, I'd ask them what word would they put in the space provided, and why did they choose that word. Then the next 2, after we did that and talked about that as a large group, then I would invite the students to do that independently. The idea is that I want to continually and gradually release the responsibility to them. So we started with me talking through what I would do, the things that were going on in my head as I worked through a problem, and then we slowly, gradually release that responsibility to the students. If things were going well, if they seemed to be getting 9 and 10 independently, then I would move to the next set of examples and give them a few more opportunities to practice. This time, there is no bank of words. Students have to come up with this independently. So I can choose whether I want to do one with the whole group. Perhaps I'd assign them to work in groups for a couple of the examples, or maybe the group seems ready that they can independently work on these. There's lots of choices, but the goal is to get them to independence. So again, provide them the opportunity to practice using context clues to figure out what words mean that they don't necessarily know. And then we take the time to go over it, see what their answers were. So once I've done all of that, then it's important for me to go back to my mentor text. Keep in mind as well that the mini lesson should really take only between 8 and 10 minutes, and then students should have a little bit of time to practice those skills. I don't want to spend a lot of time practicing with these sorts of exercises, because that's not the sort of context clues, that's not the area that they're going to be working through context clues. What we need to go to is our mentor text then to really provide them with more opportunity. So again, I would use that gradual release of responsibility model. I'd start with maybe the first paragraph or 2, and I would start to read and then identify a word or 2 that I might struggle with, and then help use context clues to figure out what that means. So I would invite all of my students to take out your mentor text, and I want you to follow along with me as I go back through this article. Every year, thousands of people are injured as they walk in the city. Many of these pedestrian injuries are caused by people who are distracted by their cell phones, studies show. So that word pedestrian is kind of throwing me for a loop. What does a pedestrian injury mean? Basically, I want to take a look at the sentence around it to see if I can figure it out. So injuries, who or what is getting injured? Basically, so far it's talked about people getting injured. It says it right here, people getting injured as they walk in the city. So pedestrian injuries, I would say, are injuries of people. So pedestrian must have to do with people. So looking at context clues is as basic as that. We're just looking for examples, synonyms, antonyms, or just the meaning of the sentence in general to figure out what words that we don't know what they mean. So once I've done that and modeled that for the students, then I would encourage them to go through the next couple paragraphs independently and look for words that they don't know and then try to come up with an idea of what the word might mean based on the context clues. I would only give them a short little section for them to work through because I want them to practice this skill, but I'm not asking them to completely reread the whole thing. We just want to get some practice for the students to get more familiar with it.